Hello, everyone.
Meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. Today I'm joined with Jacqueline, and who's autistic, and we're going to be speaking about like autism and chronic illness too. Because like we said before, we feel like in ways they are connected. In ways, although they're two separate things. What one is more so an illness, and of course autism isn't. So yeah, Jacqueline, it's going to be awesome to speak to you today. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Jacqueline City, and I am a fashion designer and disability advocate. And as Mason said, I do have autism, but I also have chronic illnesses such as dysautonomia after a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, because it's pretty cool, chronic illness, because there's so many out there, and like you of course, like I have Crohn's, and you have your chronic illness, which it's cool because we're gonna learn something today. So shall we start with autism and then go on with your illness afterwards? So when was you diagnosed with autism?
I was diagnosed with autism probably only like 2 years ago.
Okay.
So
Not
it's
long ago.
pretty hard for women, sadly. Yeah, it's pretty hard for women, sadly, to get a diagnosis, especially as an adult, because a lot of women don't have the same symptoms as men, and the criteria is mostly written for young boys, and the diagnostic criteria. I mean, yeah, so we definitely have to do a lot more work to get especially young girls diagnosed for sure.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because I think like with girls it is much harder to get a diagnosis for autism. And I can say that because I was diagnosed when I was 9, and it was the time where a lot of boys were getting diagnosed. Like that you had the odd girl, but like you say, it's different symptoms between girls and boys.
Yeah, they used to think that it was mostly affecting boys, but now we know that the rates are pretty similar in men and women. It's just the diagnostic criteria is really different. Whereas, for example, a lot of young boys may be nonverbal, young girls may talk more and not really have a filter, so they might try to overcompensate and just keep talking and talking, and no one can really tell them to stop. So there's very varying symptoms, and of course it's a spectrum. So a lot of girls maybe find it easier to mask or just copy what they see their peers doing in order to fit in, where men might have a more difficult time seeming to copy those masking techniques.
Yeah, I I remember doing that, like, because of course get you could say it's quite easy getting diagnosed at a young age, but it also has its struggles as well, because you like you say, for example, if I'm in a class and doing maths, um and I don't know what to do, and like you don't want to ask the teacher for help because everyone else in the class they're doing it right, and then you're gonna hide that behavior, like that you need that help, when deep down you just don't want to have attention.
Oh, yes, of course. And it's really hard because a lot of it ends up any sort of thing that makes you different, whether it be a disability or autism, it can just really make you stand out, make you feel different, make you feel weird. And a lot of us go through bullying, which is really sad. So, not even, we have this internal struggle where we're like, are we doing the right thing? Is something wrong with me? Why does nobody like me? We also have this external struggle we're being picked on because we don't fit in the right way. And without a diagnosis, I struggled for years thinking that maybe I was like a psychopath, like maybe I didn't have the right feelings or the right responses to people. And a lot of people externally were telling me that I had some sort of personality disorder, or that I was like some sort of monster. And the reason was I had trouble with empathy, and I had trouble communicating or understanding all these social situations like girl code, or that I was supposed to automatically know these social things that did not come naturally to me. I felt like there were like walls between me and the average girl, and I just really had trouble making friends. I had like no friends growing up. I even had like, the story a lot of autistic kids have is having a birthday party and having nobody show up, which is kind of sadly so common within the community. I had one of those. So it was definitely really hard, but there's so many struggles for people that are diagnosed and undiagnosed. Um, but I think that once I got my diagnosis, it was such a relief. Like, I cried because I was like, "Oh, nothing's wrong with me." Like, I know so many people who are autistic and they're living amazing lives. Their brain just works differently. And like and I was so happy and relieved that I wasn't like this monster or like gonna turn into like a serial killer or something. I was just so happy that I was like, "Oh, wait, what? I just have problems socially?" Like, that's all autism is. And think the way that it's also portrayed in the media, it's very like one-dimensional, and you have to have all these very specific ways to act, and there's only this one kind of person who has autism. And just to learn that there's so many people, like all of the geniuses, like Albert Einstein would have had autism, and people like Mark Zuckerberg have autism, Elon Musk, and hearing that people that are running the world have autism, it makes it feel more like a superpower and more like a family connection rather than any sort of bad thing that's happening to us. It made me feel so much better to get my diagnosis finally.
Yeah, yeah, because like I I think especially like now in the century we are in the world, that I see more adults and older people getting a diagnosis than when I got diagnosed, which I think is good.
Mhm.
Like you say, it's a it can be like a family thing, um, but it's rewarding, especially if you've been kind of it might have taken a while to get diagnosed. It takes like people years, and some people never get diagnosed. But I think the point of a
Mhm.
diagnosis helps you. Like it may get you
Yes.
more support. It may just help other people understand, because like it's
Mhm.
still in like today's like century. There's still out there people who don't know what autism is.
Oh, yeah, I think it's really important to make it commonplace to talk about it, to be proud of not only autism, but any sort of disability we have. It just makes us different. And it's important to say because a lot of us do need accommodations. And like you did in the classroom, for example, Mason, you would have needed accommodations of getting that extra help from the teacher, but you just felt like you couldn't ask for it. So it's important for us all to feel proud and feel like it's okay, and it doesn't make us any less of a person or um like anything's bad is happening. It's just really important for us to feel comfortable enough to ask for the help we need, whether it be a wheelchair to walk long distances or extra help in the classroom. I think finding those tools, and the confidence and the diagnosis, can really lead to a better life, because those tools are just helping us function to the same degree as a normal person is functioning or an average person. Um, yeah, because we're limited in our social skills. And I mean, there are a lot of comorbid disabilities with autism as well. Like a lot of kids have ADHD and autism, which is really difficult to get them the right diagnosis. It could be one or the other. Sometimes they're misdiagnosed, because they're very similar, or act similarly in the classroom, at least.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah,
think
that
diagnosis is definitely a privilege too, especially with the American health system. Um, we don't, yeah. We don't have as much access, especially the average person who may be in like a rural or suburban setting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting how like the UK and like America are
Mhm.
are have their like similar things and not so similar things, which it is interesting. Like with the healthcare system as well,
Mhm.
because of course over here we have a um like um an NHS, and over there you don't. So it is very interesting, and like support like with having a chronic illness and might need a medication
Mhm.
to support yourself, where you might have to pay like because you do, don't you? And which is why over here it's very different. But I think with a healthcare system, it's very interesting how things work.
Mhm. Yes. So a lot of people don't even have access to testing who may feel like they have autism, or like parents may suspect their child has it. And we don't, a lot of people are, since America's so spread out, that's also a huge problem because you may not have a specialist who specializes in autism in your area. So sometimes it's not even the price, but where things are. It's so spread out because America is so big, and everybody's situation is so different because economically or physically, that there's just so many different factors that, especially in the US, that diagnosis becomes a really big privilege.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes because it's time consuming, isn't it? Like a diagnosis and like I don't know. Some people might be faster, or some people might be slower, or some people may never get that diagnosis that they want. Um, which is it's very upsetting. But because I think you kind of think if you're maybe in your, let's say, 40s, 50s, 60s. I know we're
Mhm.
not that old yet. Um, but for them, I think they may suspect they maybe they are autistic, but that they may not try and push for a
Mhm.
diagnosis because they may feel, what's the point now? I'm like, I don't need maybe the support now because I've gone past that, like the like where I've needed. Like I think what's really helpful with having a diagnosis of autism, especially education, like school, college, uni, and jobs as well. Even
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, for sure. I think it's, if it's not important to the person, then it doesn't become as big of a factor. But for me, it was more of like an identity crisis. Like I thought there was something wrong with me. So that's what I was searching for an answer. And I found one. But I think it's really important, if you don't have access to those tools in person, to be your own advocate and do your own research, find out what autism is, find out the symptoms, and if you feel like it fits, to bring that to your primary care doctor, because everyone should or probably does have access to a primary care doctor. And hopefully now, because autism is so much more known, and becoming more and more commonplace, I think it's actually way more common than we even really have the data for. Um, so I think that that would be a really good step, to do your own research and then bring that to your doctor and ask them for the next steps.
yeah, yeah, and like how like when you was diagnosed, like how um how was the process of getting diagnosed? Like, was it long? Was it a short period of time?
During the pandemic, I did like a lot of self-reflection, and you're kind of forced to, just because you're alone with yourself. There was a lot of just back and forth in my own mind and trying to figure out the way I think. And I brought that up to my therapist. And along with my regular therapist, we were able to figure that out, because for a while I thought I just had social anxiety. So it was pretty quickly from when I started actually talking about the way my brain works, and that I was never really scared of people. I was more scared of their reactions to my actions, because I never knew what I was doing was the correct thing to be doing. So I didn't like inherently understand any of the social situations I was in. And then going back to when my friends in high school would say I was a psychopath or would say that I probably was a sociopath and that I should get tested for personality disorders. And I started thinking about to my therapist, like, am I? And she's like, well, you're not manipulative. Like the way you're talking to people, you're never trying to manipulate someone. You never have like any negative thought towards somebody. You never have like a motive. Like I never wanted to get anything out of anybody. I was just sort of trying to act likable or act normal and copy other people, but it was never in a manipulative way. So that's how we sort of figured out that it would be autism because, and I didn't know that autism was mostly about your social interactions and like understanding the world from like a social perspective, because I really only knew about social anxiety because that is what I've been diagnosed with since I was probably like 14, and that's what I went to therapy for since then.
Mm.
And then I was like, wait, there's a root of this. And ever since I got diagnosed, my social anxiety has been like so much better because I know that someone's reaction to me isn't my fault now. Whereas I was blaming myself for all those years on somebody else's reaction. Like if I went to order a pizza and I was really nervous and I wasn't sure if I was doing it the right way, now I know if that person thinks that I'm weird, that's okay. A lot of the world's gonna think I'm weird because I am weird, and that's okay. I just have autism. I'm communicating differently. They're not used to it, and that's not my problem. So now I think a lot of my self-worth and my self-confidence is so much better because I know that it's not me and it's just them and maybe they're not used to people with autism.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree. And like, who isn't weird though? I think we all are. I think.
I
Uh,
know, like what's normal? Weird
yeah,
is fun.
yeah. And, I never met someone that isn't weird or like. I think you like you say, you try. You try and see who you are. Like like you may think about copying another person's work, which I think most people have done that. I know I did. If I did another question, maybe in
Mhm.
class, I would look over and then that person will maybe see I did that and they'll say, did you just like write down what I just put? And so say no, I didn't do such a thing. um, but yeah, like it's just like seeing who you are. Like at that when I was really young, I didn't like agree with it. I didn't accept being autistic, and that was probably because of the group I
Mhm.
had. Like similar to you, growing up, I had not many friends in like school, um, and then and then I thought no one likes me for some reason. I don't know why. And then you get bullied,
Mhm.
which isn't nice, um, and then like with getting bullied, you tell maybe a member of staff, and it just makes the situation worse, and then and people question
Mhm.
you like for when people do get bullied, why don't they speak out to members of staff and people? I think that reason why they don't is because that will just make the situation a whole lot worse. They'll probably get told off, but then they'll do it again because there's no
Mhm.
it's very hard.
Oh, it's very hard, and I don't really see it being any better now than when I was in school. But hopefully it becomes more and more accepting because hopefully Gen Z they seem to be very creative and very independent. They seem to be like very expressive. So hopefully they're more accepting of people expressing themselves and being different.
Hmm, yeah, it is hard. Like like with getting jobs as well. It's all down to people being accepting of your autism. Um, because like
Oh
if you
yeah.
maybe need 5 minutes out, or like it's too much if you're doing a certain thing, and then because it's a timetable, you might have to do something for 4 hours straight, and you can't focus. You can't focus and do that, and um which it's very hard, and like, which is why we do stuff like this, try to educate people and stuff, but it's very hard.
Mhm. I think the most important thing is to continue to try to educate and make it more commonplace, make it seem normal to be working alongside someone who has autism, and really educating people on like common triggers or common like accommodations that we can make for people that have autism, which would mostly be limiting sensory input to that person. But hopefully it's getting a little bit better with the rise of being able to work from home, so that autistic people might feel more comfortable in like a safe space that is their own, that they're not forced to be super social in an office building and be exposed to like tons of people coming in and out of their office, or having to deal with like the lunch tables, or like having to deal with cubicles. And I know that that is exhausting. Even just as an introvert, I think a lot of introverts find that exhausting to have so many people in and out of these in-person office buildings. Just thinking about it, I'm like starting to panic. I'm like, that seems, if it's even just like overhead lighting, music, these are all things that most people without autism wouldn't really think of. But these are things that in my mind, I've always panicked about. Like all these things are so sensory and overwhelming to me that even just people like, oh, why couldn't you just work in a grocery store, to somebody with autism? And we're like, no, that's like the worst place. Like Target or a grocery store are so made to be so sensory so that people continue to want to buy, and all of their senses are interactive. So there's bright colors, there's overhead lighting, there's really long hallways that it's easy to get really confused, and because it's meant to keep you there. It's meant to keep you shopping and going through all these like roundabouts basically, and engage all of your senses. So there's smells, colors, lights, music, overhead announcements. There's just so much going on at once that it's like, no, no, no. Those are the worst places, and they're the only places that will hire people like greeters, or like I don't know. It's just really upsetting that that's not thought about. That people are like, oh, you can just go work at Walmart. Like you could be a greeter, and it's like, meeting that many people, it can be really difficult for more introverted autistic people. Like there are definitely extroverts who may thrive in that environment, who really like to meet people and say hello, but a lot of autistic people are very introverted and do suffer with social anxiety. Um, so those are probably usually the scariest places to be.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, and like like that, like you say with music, like music place will be maybe calming for quite a lot of quite autistic people, because music is always loved. It's everywhere, isn't it? Like if you're watching a telly program, or it's everywhere you go. You can't get away from music. Um, but yeah, it's all down to that, isn't it? It's all down to like music, special interests that we like, and
Mhm,
we may talk about a lot. But yeah, I I'm quite sensory myself, so I don't like
mhm.
people like close contact, um, and it's annoying now, because COVID is gone for a lot of people, but still people don't like to be close. And now when which it kind of leads to um chronic illness as well, because which with my chronic illness, I take medication that really dampens my immune system. So it's really low, and
Mhm.
I would tell someone maybe to step back, and they would get offended.
Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, COVID was very tough in general, even just On one side it's really isolating, so we feel super alone, having no people contact, and then the other part of it's like if we try to jump into these social settings, it was really overwhelming for me. Like last night I was really excited because it's Halloween and it's a really big deal in America, and it's like the first Halloween where people felt really safe to go out. Um, so my street was thousands of people and they blocked traffic, and I felt like I couldn't get out. There was too many people. I felt like they were all touching me, and I very much panicked and I had like a tantrum. Like I had like a panic attack and I could not go out. I just went home. I ordered a pizza and I watched a movie because I just couldn't be out with all of the trick-or-treaters and events going on last night. It was just too much for me. And I think that's an important thing to do is to remove ourselves when there is too much because for so long in my life, people were forcing me to try, why are you panicking? Like it's just people, like it's not a big deal. But now as an adult to be able to advocate for myself and be like, this is actually the best thing for me is to remove myself from this. And it doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me like upset that I'm gonna miss out on something. It's gonna, in the long run, help me because even if I was super stressed, you're more likely to get sick. You're more likely like I'm preventing myself from it being like a bigger deal. And I just needed to know that I have to miss out on Halloween, but that's okay because it's what's best for me because I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. H- Yeah, it's like because there's going to be lots of people and it's going to be overcrowded and like with a social like you're going to get really anxious about it and like because people aren't going to really care, are they? Like that because they're not worrying about someone else. They're worrying that they're out and enjoying themselves and
Mhm.
probably gonna jump on someone because it's Halloween and it's all about scary. um, but yeah,
Yeah, it was just too much.
mm, it's good that you got out though. Like you made that choice and just to leave.
I think we all can do that. So if you're like at the mall or you're at the grocery store, feel like it's okay to remove ourselves, go outside. We could take breaks, bring things that you might feel like could be accommodations for you. So I wear earplugs a lot of the time if there's super loud music. Sometimes it gets really distracting to me. I'm not able to focus on anything because I'm just listening to the music. So I like earplugs, sunglasses if you're really sensitive to lights. Um, yeah, and like always, it's really hard because a lot of people aren't aware of places that have strobe lights. I'm noticing people don't even think about it, and those can be super effective, super like traumatic or symptomatic. And overhead lighting, sometimes we don't know when they'll be super bad. Even the other day, I couldn't pay attention because the restaurant had blinking lights, like the lights were going in and out, and it was just so distracting to me that I couldn't do anything but think about these lights going on and off above me, like the flickering lights. So just sometimes I just make sure to bring things like sunglasses and earplugs. Calming toys, a lot of people like fidget toys, things like that. So we can, and then remove yourself when you are able to, or take a break to the bathroom just to gather yourself just to prevent us from having those panic attacks and tantrums is great. And don't be upset. I mean, don't be feel bad about yourself if you do end up having one, because we all are going to have them at some point, and that's okay. Our brains just work differently, and we have to take it easy and do what we can, and still try to have a good time, or still try to see our friends or whatever we feel is safe for us to do. Because I know somebody like you has to be extra careful, but not to let it prevent from things that we really want to do and feel like we can do.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree because they like I think times like that kind of you kind of picture yourself like people you want to be around and people who are gonna understand. Not the most to understand because it's hard. It's hard if someone hasn't got that themselves, but try them to put themselves in your shoes or something like that. Um, because, like you say, you can still do things. It's just a safer way of doing it, rather than putting the risk, because
Mhm.
there's always going to be a risk. Even before COVID, that there is a risk. But it's just the fact it's even worse than now, when actually like all the rules were in place, because nothing's there over here, all gone, and there's no. It just comes down to respect, really, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So would would you mind just saying a little bit about your chronic illness?
Yes, of course. So I suffered a traumatic brain injury in 2014, and I was 18 at the time, and I got hit in the head, and I got rushed to 2 different hospitals, and I had brain damage, and they thought it was just like a concussion. So I went through a lot of like concussion protocol, but I just wasn't getting better until eventually I went to a concussion specialist who said it was post concussion syndrome. And I went through a lot of therapy for the TBI, like learning how to walk, talk, read, write again, because I was just so sick I couldn't finish school, I couldn't do anything. And I went to occupational therapy, eye therapy, emotional therapy, just all these different therapies. I was in the hospital like 5 days a week doing these different therapies, and I tried to go back to school to start college, and I was just getting so confused. I couldn't navigate between my classes, and I was passing out. So I would pass out up to like 20 times a day, and I started not to be able to keep food down. I lost 50 pounds, and I was just really frustrated because I couldn't get a diagnosis. They were telling me it was just panic attacks, that it was sort of in my head. And I was like, "No, I have panic attacks. I've had panic attacks since I was 12, and these aren't panic attacks. I don't lose consciousness. I don't fall to the ground when I'm having a panic attack." And they were like, "These are just different kinds. They're just new panic attacks." And I was like, "Okay, I trust you. You're a doctor." And then eventually I saw a different doctor came in instead of that doctor, and she was like, "What you're describing is your heart. Like, this is your heart, this isn't your brain." And I was like, "What? What do you mean? I'm passing out. How's that my heart?" And she was like, "I'm gonna do the test right now and we're gonna see." And my pulse doubled upon standing. And she was like, "You have probably the worst case of POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome that she'd ever seen." And that means that it's a form of dysautonomia, which means that the brain damage that I suffered to my hypothalamus, it can't regulate anything that should automatically regulate in my body, which includes blood pressure, but not just blood pressure, digestion, my temperature. So I get like hot and cold flashes, my eyes and like my vision changes, and all of those were all stemming from this dysautonomia. And once I got on the right medications, I started to get better little by little. And I still suffer with it, but at my worst, I was in a wheelchair, especially for long distances. And now I only pass out probably like once a month. So I'm doing really well, but that's definitely the number one thing that affects me is my dysautonomia. But, I used to feel like I was kind of like trapped on the teacups at Disney World, like everything was spinning. I was so nauseous and dizzy, and already being so sensory like susceptible, it was just overwhelming. I really couldn't do anything but lay in bed because everything was spinning and moving. It was just awful. But now I'm doing so much better. And I created my fashion brand, Jacqueline City Apparel, when I was getting better from being bedridden, but I wasn't well enough to return to school. And I just sort of, instead of, I knew I couldn't have a 9 to 5, I couldn't have a regular job. So I kind of made my own. And I thought it would just be like a little side project, like a hobby. But it really took off, and people liked hearing my story. And I like to tell people that they can still follow their dreams despite having any sort of chronic illness or disability. And people really like that.
Yeah, I think that's really good because um like like that you've got your own like brand and named after yourself. So that is that's really cool because you don't get especially being autistic, not many people can like do that. I find so that's really good that you're doing that and like you're raising awareness of like your chronic illness as well within that and
Mhm.
like with and then because it is a fight to get a diagnosis like you're saying that you're getting told other things that it was your heart, that you're just making it up and stuff like that, which isn't
Mhm.
it's not nice to be get told that you kind of telling the truth.
Yeah, it was very difficult and it took years. I mean, now I'm 26 and I got sick at 18, so that's 8 years. And it was a long battle, and just being told incorrect things or not being taken seriously is a huge problem, especially for women in the medical industry. It's really sad that women sometimes aren't taken as seriously with their symptoms as men. Um, and that's definitely something that I just like to talk about, bring awareness to, and just a lot of people aren't educated. A lot of doctors aren't even educated on a lot of these more rare chronic illness. They see it once on a test or in one textbook. They don't really come in contact with it. They don't think about it. So when it comes to diagnosing someone, it's just not at the top of their brain. So they're not really thinking about it. There's not I wish doctors like House on TV were real and they make sure they have the right diagnosis and they put all their effort into it, but really it's like, you're not dying, so I think it's fine. We'll do your blood work. It's not cancer, you're good. Um, so it's really hard for people to find out exactly what these chronic illnesses are unless a doctor's really willing to do a lot of the tests. And I'm sure you went through your own share of different tests.
Yeah, yeah, like with my diagnosis of Crohn's, I lost a lot of weight too. Um, it was tremendous amount of weight. Um, it was like looked very skinny, and I wasn't eating. And this was in 2017, so it would have just gone past 5 years now. Because I was diagnosed in October time. Um, so not that far
Mhm,
from Halloween. So I always remember. But through that, I had the different tests. I I was in a lot of pain, a burning feeling in my stomach. It were, and it wasn't always like that. Like I look back in pictures throughout the year of 2017, and I can see that I've lost weight in maybe September time, which was my birthday, and I was happy that I had a good birthday, that I wasn't in any pain, but people did notice, like family members noticed that I did do like I look different, like I look skinnier and stuff like that, and then
mhm,
start after my birthday, quite rapidly after my birthday, I started not eating and I started struggling to eat,
mhm,
and then I I would have to eat because you can't not eat. It's dangerous. And then I got put on these, liquid diet drinks that you drink if you can't eat anything. And I didn't like them either.
yep,
So I wasn't winning either way there. Um, and then when I went to A&E, like the ER in America, and you go to
mhm,
if you're in an emergency for anything, you have to go to that kind of service, which I always think it shouldn't be that way now, because you can't see it. It's not an injury, is it? Like you're not there because you've broken your leg. You're there because it's a chronic illness, and you're in. And at the time, I had no idea what it was.
oh, yeah, frozen. Hopefully you can fix it.
Yeah, you're you're back now. It just froze.
Perfect. Yeah, luckily it was only a few seconds, so I
Yeah,
think we're back.
yeah, you're back. wh- what what was you saying before it froze?
I was just going through a lot of the same testings. They really thought that I might have had Crohn's because of how sick I got so quickly. So I'm sure we had like all the same tests, and I also was in and out of the ER. I couldn't eat. I was on a baby food diet. It was just awful. But the worst part I found was a lot of people approached me and said, "Oh, you look so good. Like, what kind of diet are you on? Like, you lost so much weight." As if that's automatically a good thing. But I was like, actually, I don't know what's wrong, and I'm really sick. So it's just so strange. I don't know if you got any comments like that, but oh, like you lost so much weight. And it's like I'm sick. Like that doesn't so I feel like it's really important also to maybe not comment on people's weight or appearance because you never know. They might be struggling with a chronic illness and their weight loss might be from that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, I like you like it shouldn't be that way, should it? You get these kind remarks. Although it's nice for people to be kind, but not in that kind of thing. Like it wasn't your aim to lose all this weight. Like you did expect to lose all this weight. It's too
Mhm,
much than an average person does, and through that
mhm.
it's not nice, and um it's it's like
Yeah.
oh, it's hard because like your response to that, someone saying that to you, if they like it'd be hard to respond because they just think it's you trying to lose weight when it's not you doing that.
Mhm. It's sad to think that people automatically equate being overweight to being healthy and being like underweight or being really skinny to automatically being healthy because now I see people that are like a little bit overweight or even like a normal size, and people in the fashion industry will call you fat or they'll say that you're too big. And it's just like these people are probably way healthier than somebody like me who was like underweight or really, really thin because just because you're skinny doesn't mean that you're healthy. Like a lot of people are suffering with a lot of health problems who are very thin. So, and the people that are overweight might not have any health problems. They might be able to run a marathon. So, it's very weird that we only see like very thin people as being super healthy when a lot of them they could even be suffering with like something like an eating disorder or something like Crohn's, and it's just it's really sad for to think about those people, having to go through those comments like, "I oh, you look so much better." It's like, "Oh, I wish I was the weight before because I was so much happier and healthier." Like, don't please don't tell me I look better like this, like, I just wanna be back where I was, and it was really hard for me when I would hear those things, like, "I look so much better sick," like
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Like if that was the case, like at the time I wouldn't be attached to a drip for Crohn's medication. Um, which yeah, it's hard, but it's like I remember when I was out of hospital and stuff, and then I would go back and I would say maybe to taxi driver, escort, do I notice any difference to you? And they actually thought I didn't look any different when I was really skinny. So that was actually a surprise to me, thinking that nothing's wrong. Probably because I didn't go on about it. I tried not to complain when I was in pain because I knew I was going to catch up with work and college and school. So I did go in. I was holding my stomach, even though holding my stomach would not have helped the pain. It would just make me pinch, like like the skin and stuff. But that that is the thing. It's very visual, isn't it? Like people see you for um like what you look like, not what's going on like in your life or in your insides
Mhm.
of yourself. So it's very like judgy.
That's the very hard part about autism and chronic illness and invisible disabilities is that people don't think we look sick. and so we might be taken less seriously. So people can't see things like autism or see things like Crohn's. So they might think, "Oh, like who's this person who thinks they need like accommodations or they think that they have this disability?" I mean, I'm still met with anytime I have autism, a lot of people are like, "No, you don't."
Mm.
Like, "What? What do you mean?" Like, "No, you don't." And it's just invalidating. So I think it's just important for us to keep our confidence high, keep our positivity, and know who we are, because I think that that's not ever something that's going to change. There's always going to be people that are confused or tell us no, we're not when we say we have something. And it's just important to know that we do, and just be confident so that we don't get bullied again like we were when we were kids. Because I think these young bullies just grew up to be adult bullies.
Yeah, I think my buddy's probably still a buddy, like, because once I left, I didn't really keep any contact with anyone because I kind of felt some people were pretending to be my friend, maybe because they felt sorry for me and not having any.
Mhm,
um, but the bully, it was a girl, and I think there's a stigma about bullies just being men, but they're not. The girls can be bullies
mhm,
too, and um, that
of
wasn't a good.
course.
That
Some of
wasn't.
the worst bullies, because they bully with words and like very specific things about you to like bring your confidence down, whereas men, a lot of times it's like physical. But I personally think like cyberbullying and verbal abuse are sometimes way worse, because it mentally creates this different version of ourselves and alters our reality, which is far more dangerous in my mind than a physical abuse, because it just alters your idea of who you are and the reality around you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, I don't think like sometimes you maybe get a nasty like message or something like that, but maybe not the length of like in person. Like you say, it will just be those little remarks,
Mhm,
like maybe Buddy would say, "Be quiet," or "Be quiet," or Don't say
mhm,
anything," because they said that, and then you feel really overwhelmed. Like um, I remember very well that there was a situation with my buddy at the school, and I got really I got really fed up because I was letting this happen continuously. I wasn't doing anything about it because I knew it would just get worse and worse, and this happened throughout the majority of my like it was primary school, so I was very young at this point. And then one time I got really annoyed and I acted out because I was frustrated. And then you know what the buddy does? As soon as I act out, he goes to a member of staff, and then I go to a member of staff as well
mhm,
because I can tell if she's gonna say something about me, I'll say something about them because it was obviously gonna be her her
mhm.
word against mine, and then we had to apologize, and I did say I don't have anything to apologize for, but I just did because it got dealt to the head teacher in the end. But it's very like you say, it's very it's not good that stuff happens.
Yeah, and the cyber part, I just think it's really hard for kids growing up now, because whereas we could leave it on the playground and go home to our families, these kids are going home to social media where those bullies can again bully them online or bully them via text message or phone calls and that sort of thing. So it doesn't stop, which is really sad that these kids now can't really escape it a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's tough because like you say, I probably didn't have a phone at that age, like, and like you say, it's all social media based now. Um, like
Mhm,
you'll have people maybe that 10 years old that they'll have their mobile phone, um, and it is it's very upsetting because like it's the worst way to cyber because like they could say because no one can do anything about it. Like your teacher can't take your phone off
mhm.
you because that would be breaking the rules, and you you can't just go over there and do something because it just gets so really out of hand, and yes, cyber is the worst.
Yeah, it's very sad, and I don't really know how we can even do it. I think it's up to the parents on whether or not kids have phones, or it's really hard to regulate what kind of content they're consuming. Because even on YouTube, they might have these filters that are like safe for kids, but if a person makes a crude video, they could just label it as safe for kids, and we don't know if the algorithm's catching them all. There's so many different ways for children to even interact. How do we block all these different sites, on all these different social medias? um, it's just a lot, and it's hard because we don't really know the repercussions, and how being aware or being so involved in cyberspace will affect their psyche, or affect how they go on to be socially. Like, this could really hurt their social skills, or those who are autistic might never develop their social skills or develop their masking techniques, and we don't really know what the future holds for those who um, aren't really working on their social anxiety through exposure therapy, because a lot of us were kind of forced to do exposure therapy in school, and trying to like fit in school. So we don't really know, with these Zoom kids who are doing their classes even online, how that could actually hinder people with autism. Because we're talking about all these tools and how we have all these great things now to improve our symptoms as autistic people, but that might be something that's setting them back, is not having in-person communication at all.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, and like like they say, it's gonna hold you back. You gotta not have confidence because people are saying this about you,
Mm,
and like it's all about being like, I guess that like bullies like to be in charge, and they'll go around,
mm,
and other kids in the class like to be liked. People like to be liked, and that they would go around because in probably their own way, that other kids that aren't getting bullied by this bully, but this bully is going around saying stuff about the kid that's getting bullied, they're the other ones who aren't
mhm,
getting bullied are going to go along with it because they want to be liked. And if they don't go along with it, they are probably feeling that they might be next along those lines. And
mhm,
I think it's all about nowadays. If people are being like, maybe a friendship group, if you have that friendship group and
mhm,
one person who's being mean to this other person in the friendship group doesn't like that person, and um, the others do, but they don't want to do anything about that situation because they don't want to fall out with anyone. They want to get on with everyone, and then that is how it is, I think, now, because people just want to get on with everyone, and no one wants to make that step and defend that person because the other person not going to like it, and they're going to keep coming back and back until they get their own way, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of group mentality, and just everybody's just trying not to be the victim, that everybody kind of just groups together and wants to fit in. And yeah, there's a lot of horrible things that go on, and just you feel like you're supposed to. So if everybody's bullying somebody, you feel like you're supposed to join in, or it's hard to be the person that sticks up for another person.
Mm.
I feel like I was usually just on the outside confused on all of the dynamics. Like, why are you guys bullying this person? Like, let's just not. Or like, I was just always confused. Or I would say something and people would think I was a bully because I would just say something really blunt or obvious. I'd be like, I liked your shirt better yesterday. I don't like this shirt. And I didn't understand that I wasn't supposed to say things like that, and people would think I was a bully. So there was a lot of reflect, like, was I being mean? Like, I don't understand how that was mean. I just liked his shirt better yesterday.
Yeah,
And I had to learn that those aren't socially acceptable to say. So there's a lot of different dynamics
yeah,
at
that
play.
that is the thing. Like people take things the wrong way, and being autistic, you're going to take things a certain way. Like not everyone understands sarcasm, and some people do. Like when I was at school, um, I didn't really understand sarcasm, and I got offended what people were saying if it was a joke. So I didn't know because not many
Mhm.
people liked me at that time. I don't know why. Um, People like me now. um, but it's just growing up, I guess. It's hard to make friends. Um, and that
Oh, yeah.
that that was the thing for me. It was very hard, and I found it hard to speak to people, start a conversation. And like now, I can start a conversation, where I can make new friends and stuff. But it's all about how people take the conversation. Like if you're saying something like, like you said that I like your top yesterday better. That in their mind, they're probably taking offence that you don't like to top the road today.
Mhm.
Just the silly little thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just really hard to learn. It's like, and then I was like, "Wait, other people didn't have to learn how to be social?" I just thought everybody was learning all the time, like, what is the right thing to do, and they were like, "No, nobody teaches those things." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely very autistic then." And I'm just thought that everybody was. I thought that everybody was having these dilemmas in their head and trying to figure out the right thing to say.
yeah,
But nope.
yeah. And like going back on what you said earlier about like or like with people saying that you don't look autistic, and I think in people's minds when they say that they picture a person that can't it's maybe not verbal and they need awful a lot of support.
Mhm.
I think that's what they picture. That they don't picture like an able person that you can speak, that you can walk. And like with
Mhm.
uh,
Oh,
like
yes.
like with being like it's not visible. It goes back to that because I think that's what people picture, and like people don't have to be in a wheelchair. People um
Mhm.
can walk, and it's all down to that. I think about the way they picture things. Some people.
I think everyone has this idea of autism based on someone that they know that's been diagnosed who was a young boy who was nonverbal. There's a lot of people's experience firsthand with autism is a lot of people have, oh, my friend's child was diagnosed at 3 and he didn't talk, he was just screaming and he had trouble. He would line things up in a line, and so he got diagnosed with autism, but he's better now. And the kid's like 10 and he can talk, and his special interest is math and he's winning all these math competitions. So like he's better now. And it's like, no, he still has autism. He's just gotten a lot more tools,
Mm,
and the attention and the special education that he needed, and of course he's really smart. So many people with autism are geniuses, like the smartest people in the world, and it has nothing to do with, a lot of people think of it as like a learning disorder or something like that. It's like that's not, yes, a lot of people are comorbid with a learning disorder, but not everybody. Autism itself isn't a learning disorder. It's not anything like that. So I think a lot of people really think about children, because a lot of, and especially male children, and it's like it's not something people grow out of. A lot of people don't understand that adults have autism in general, especially not an adult woman. Like that's
yeah,
just like not where their mind goes.
that's it. And like I see so many more nowadays, like girls and who are adults, and they are doing well for themselves, and they are doing a lot in the autism community, and are speaking about their journey and their life. Like it's not just about raising awareness; it's
Mhm.
about like raising awareness of your everyday life if you want.
I think it's also like just because a lot of research has been done with autism in the last like couple years, maybe like 30 years. That's when people were really getting diagnosed, not really before then. It wasn't as common. And I think there's a lot of adults that have it who just don't know or just thought that they were weird or different. And I think if you had like a teacher who had a really special interest and she had a wall full of like wooden ducks, and she was an introvert and she stayed home every night and she has 2 friends, and she's like very specific about the topics she wants, she probably has autism. And it's a spectrum, and she's, there's so many people that are just functioning and have great jobs and great lives, and they probably have autism as well, and they just never got diagnosed. So I really think it's a lot more common than people really think.
Yeah, yeah, it's getting more um it's more spoken about now, and
Hmm.
especially what like back in the early 2000s, that like that was the time where you could see quite a lot of boys maybe having a diagnosis, and now we're maybe 20 odd years later, and you're getting more girls that are maybe getting a diagnosis as an
Hmm.
adult, and
Yep.
I think an adult is actually a good age. I think it's a good age to get diagnosed. I think even better than getting diagnosed young, maybe the age I was 9, um, because like I guess I think Amy Pass being an adult is it's not it's good to get a diagnosis anyway, but it's not like maybe helpful to you if you got a good working
Hmm.
job, you pass your education, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, if you're worried about needing accommodations, especially if it's comorbid with something like ADHD or a learning disorder, it's really important to get those accommodations that you feel like you need in school. Um, or if you need accommodations sensory wise, I think it's really important to fight for that diagnosis as soon as you can get it, whether you are 4 or whether you're 40, if you're going to need those accommodations. If you don't need accommodations as much, it's kind of for yourself. So if you feel like you don't need that validation, then it's not as important. But if you feel like you need that validation, like I did, just to feel like that I knew that nothing was really wrong with me and that I was just a little bit different. That was really important to me. But I think it wouldn't really improve, as you're saying, people's quality of life as the older they get.
Yeah, yeah, and it
Because it
is
wouldn't really change anything.
no, no, and like I was I went to like a mainstream setting school to start with, and that wasn't very good because no one understood my autism there, because they thought I'm just getting on with my work. They thought
Mhm.
I don't need any help 'cause I'm not asking for it. And being autistic, I found it hard at that time to ask for support.
Oh yeah. I think that but then when we're not open to the support and we're really closed off, I think eventually we get overloaded because we're doing so much and it's really hard for us. And what we're not thinking about is um, an average functioning person, neurotypical, that's a good word to say, might function at this level. We're functioning down here. And it's like once we get a tool, we're up here. A tool, a tool, a tool. Then we're functioning at the same level as someone who may be neurotypical if we get like an extra hour for the test and they're going to turn the overhead lights off and we can talk out loud during the test because that it might be better for people to be able to hear what they're writing, something like that. With those tools, you're going to function at the same as a neurotypical taking that test in a regular classroom setting. And what people with neurotypicals don't understand is they think we're getting a leg up. They think we're going above them, like we're getting all this special treatment. It's like, no, we're beginning down here. So when we get these tools, we're just trying to meet you where you are. We're just trying to function at where you are. So if we get an audiobook because I have trouble, like somebody with like dyslexia, like their words are getting jumbled up and they like to hear it, it's just a different accommodation so that they can function at the same pace as a neurotypical. It's not to give us a leg up or give us the special treatment. I think a lot of people also see it as you're getting special treatment. So then we don't want to speak up. We don't want to get that because we don't want to be the odd one out. Especially a lot of us have childhood trauma of being that odd one out and being bullied. And you're like, no, don't let this happen again. I don't want to be the one that's picked on.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I personally prefer audio book than actually reading a book myself. So I can relate
Hmm.
to that because I lose concentration very easily with reading a book. If it's maybe read to me
Me too.
or audio, I'll concentrate more.
Yeah, so that's an accommodation people can ask for if they are in school. Yeah, there's a lot of different accommodations, and it's really important to look them up. Hopefully, a lot of schools are starting to get centers of disability and centers of learning disorders and that sort of thing so that you can visit them and get those resources you need. Educate yourself on accommodations and then bring them to the resource center. To be like, oh, I heard about this one person who takes their test in another room. Could I do that? And just think about things that would help you be able to function to your best ability and feel confident enough to ask for them, because there's people that have concussions or people that have temporary illnesses that are able to get these. Just because we have a chronic illness doesn't mean it's any less severe or any less important. It just means that we're going to need these accommodations longer. So anything that should help us is important to ask for. So we have to build our confidence and always work on our confidence, continue to work on it so that we can have our voices heard and make it regular, make it commonplace so that people that might have an invisible illness, who aren't as confident, who don't want people to know, they can get the courage to actually identify as disabled and really ask for those accommodations and get the help they need.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have dogs.
No worries. But I completely agree with you saying the confidence is everything.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think we all struggle with. Even little bits of imposter syndrome, just feeling like we're not disabled enough or not sick enough, and that there's people that need these accommodations more than us. But it's really important to just sit with yourself and realize that I would do better if I had this accommodation, and be like, that's going to give me the courage to ask for it, because I would do so much better if all my textbooks were an audiobook. I would be able to pay attention better, or if everything was in a bigger print, I would be able to pay attention better. Or if I was able to bring my iPad to class and write down my notes that way rather than a pen and paper, anything, or like type them, anything that would be able to really help you pay attention. It's important because we shouldn't all be these martyrs who are making ourselves work like 500 times harder if we just get these little things. So that's why I think it's important to talk about our disabilities and talk about how we're all still living like fulfilling lives. Because I used to think if I was disabled, that would mean I'm disabled for the rest of my life and I'm bedridden for the rest of my life and I'll never be able to do anything and I'll have to rely on other people for absolutely everything. And that's just not the case. You can definitely be your own advocate and live a really fulfilling life with any disability and continue to just work on each of your symptoms. And confidence is key because we need to be able to speak up and
Yeah.
ask for them.
Yeah, and it's gone a long way because you don't start with confident, but as life goes on, you get more
Oh
confident.
yeah.
And yeah, like I was only at mainstream school for a year, then I moved to like special school where people had autism and other things as well,
Mhm.
which was very helpful. Even though I ended up at that school getting people autism training because people weren't understanding, because like a teacher would say, you can go to lunch now. So I actually went to lunch, had my lunch, when that actually meaning go to break. It's another term for going to break, is saying you can go to lunch. So if they actually said to me, go to break, I would have took that on board and then I wouldn't have had my lunch. So due to that kind of
Oh yeah.
communication error, I spoke about it. I spoke to my tutor about it, and there was autism training, I think, for the whole school. But the school isn't a big school. It's not like those massive schools. It was only. It's not. It's. I'd say it's large enough. But yeah, it's fulfilling when you get that stuff done, and then they learn more. About this, about autism.
That's amazing that you even just like figured out what was happening and you were able to articulate and you're able to tell them what had happened and the language that you need to hear, because that's being such an amazing advocate for yourself. And I think a lot of people, maybe even neurotypicals, wouldn't be able to speak up and ask for those. So it's really important to just keep building our confidence to be able to ask for the things that we need, because if they encounter another autistic person, now they'll know to use more direct language. Um, Even if they're not at the school, just in their everyday life. It's amazing to just keep educating people so that you don't even know how many people you probably helped, because every student heard that. And then so every student is going to encounter at least one autistic person in their life, and then they'll know to take to use more direct language instead of using like colloquialisms or
Yeah,
metaphors or anything that like sarcasm.
yeah, yeah. Like even though like with sarcasm, I am more, I can be more like jokey now because I understand it. But so some people don't.
Mhm.
Some people maybe our age who still take offence to certain tones of language, and sayings as well. Like if you say maybe you're saying like 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 tighten up or something, something like that, and people were thinking, well, what do you mean tighten up? That kind of tone of language. And towards the end of my school life, and actually, I think towards, because it was my last year at school, I was diagnosed with Crohn's, and I wasn't confident to start with because I didn't know what it was, but I think 2020-ish, I started getting a lot more confidence, and to tell my story and speak to different people, you know. So I thought that's brought my confidence massively. I think getting diagnosed with a chronic illness, because I think you kind of think like, if I can get diagnosed with a chronic illness and still be here talking about my journey and hearing about others, you can kind of put your mind to anything that you want to do.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, because as we said, confidence is everything.
I agree. I think that's the big learning lesson that we talked about today.
Yeah,
We just have to know who we are and be proud of who we are, and know that even if we have any sort of disability or any sort of chronic illness, that that's not who make like what makes us sorry what makes us us. Our It's not what makes us us, but it's just like a small part of who we are, and it's just as important as something like our special interests.
Mm,
It all makes us who we are, but really, it's not the whole
yeah.
story. Obviously, we know that, but it's just part of our story and part of our journey, and it's an important part. But it's not the whole thing. We are not our illness, you know.
We are definitely not. And like just last thing, you think about special interests. What other interests do you have other than, like, of course, raising awareness for chronic illness, autism? Um, do you have any others like interests that you like?
I'm obsessed with Taylor Swift, so I know everything about Taylor
Oh, you
Swift.
do?
I like 60s music. I collect autographs. I collect Polaroids. I used to collect rocks as a kid. Now I'm like into a lot of like gems instead of rocks, like a lot of crystals and that sort of thing. I like to collect. What other interests? I like a lot of different TV shows and movies, pop culture. Um, yeah, fashion in general. Fashion's a fun one for me. What are yours?
Um, Mine is I like Doctor Who. You might tell from like maybe the background here. Like I've always been interested in it, and it's my top interest. And I like English. I like English football. Any sport really, except from cricket. I don't like cricket. I think it's
Mhm.
boring. um, um, like, although I do like rounders, it's very similar, but you just run more. But yeah, I like horror. I like paranormal stuff. I like going to, like, linking in with Doctor Who. I like going to locations. So like earlier this year, I went um to different locations of where it was filmed in the show, because I think that's really rewarding, going to somewhere that someone's filmed that you're really passionate about. And so yeah, that is
Yeah,
my they're my special interests.
that's really cool. Yeah, I love seeing where different movies were shot, or because I live in New York now, I like to watch movies and then try to figure out like where they shot it in New York, or I'll be like, that's my neighborhood. And yesterday for Halloween, I was a Ghostbuster, and I went to the buildings where they filmed Ghostbusters to take pictures. So I think that's really cool to do things like that.
Yeah, because you've got so many good places in America to go to, because you got like you say, you got Ghostbusters, probably got Halloween, you got I'm not sure if Scream's filmed there, but you got so many good
I love
stuff.
Halloween.
Yeah,
I love Halloween. Like
yeah,
the movies
yeah,
Halloween? Or is that
yeah,
what you're talking about?
yeah,
I
yeah,
love Halloween. My favorite movies, Halloween.
yeah. Because it wasn't long ago since the last Halloween film was out, was it? It was only last month. So yeah,
Yes, I went to see it. I got tickets from like a radio station to go early. So I was so excited I got to see it before it came out. I love Michael Myers. So
yeah, yeah. What did you think of the film? Did you like it?
I have a lot of different opinions. I could talk about it. It could be its own podcast. I could talk about it for like 2 hours. But to sum it up, I think I understand it. I understand what they were trying to do in saying that even if Michael was like gone, there's always going to be evil in the world, and that evil takes different forms. Like it takes a self-hatred form in Laurie, as opposed to like a wanting to hurt other people form in what's his name, the new main character of that one.
Yeah,
I forget his name.
I know who you mean, but yeah, I can't remember who he is either. So his name. So
I think there was just too much of a focus on the new character. I wish it was more about Michael and Michael's backstory and like what led him to that first Halloween. I would have loved to see that, but I understand that they were kind of doing it through it didn't matter what had happened to Michael, that things like that are going to keep happening and keep making these serial killers. Um, but I don't know. I just wish it was more full circle also. I wish there was more of a tie-in to the original. It felt like there wasn't enough for me for it to be the last movie. Kind of felt abrupt for Michael to just be gone, and I think that it would have made more sense if um, someone did like have the mask and like was going to continue,
yeah,
and I think it would have felt more complete. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I think that might have been better, but yeah, I think things like this, they end it on the last movie, but they always go back to it in the future, don't they? So who knows? We might see another Halloween film in the future.
I just really liked the beginning of the trilogy, like the first two. I really thought they were gonna tell Michael's story, but there's like no Michael in this new one. Not enough Michael for me.
No, he was in glimpses throughout the episode, and then it was like the last 10 minutes of it.
Hmm.
Which I mean, there was action in it. Like when I saw people
Oh yeah.
saying they didn't like it because there wasn't nothing was happening, but there was action, but you just didn't have Michael Myers. It was almost like he was hibernating. But
Yeah. But I think the thing we always loved was Michael and Laurie's dynamic, and like how scary it was that well in this what's canon in the trilogy is that he didn't know her, he was not related to her, she was just kind of a random person, and that's the scariest part of Michael Myers is he doesn't have special powers. He just is a regular person with a knife who can like come and get you, and like just picked Laurie because she was a babysitter, and he but I think I just wish that we knew why Michael was targeting babysitters. I think that has a lot, that there's a storyline there, that something had to have happened to Michael that triggered him to hurt his sister and then go for babysitters. Like maybe she was babysitting him and she hurt him in some way and that triggered him. to then keep hurting babysitters. But like we saw through the new character's eyes that Michael saw in his eyes that he had gone through similar trauma, and he lets him go. He doesn't kill him. And I get that says a lot about Michael. I just wish that it would have been more tied, you know? I
Yeah.
want to know who he is. But I guess they want to keep the mystery, like, ooh, is Michael a real person or is Michael like a supernatural being? But I think the scariest part is that he was a real person who was hurt. And that can happen to people is if you get enough like traumatic stress and brain damage and trauma that you can start to take it out on other people, or in Lori's case, take it out on yourself.
Yeah.
And they're important topics to talk about.
Yeah. I completely agree. And like you said, I think we could do a whole podcast on this, couldn't we?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a really deep movies. People just think of horror as like blood and guts, but Halloween itself is really important to me. I think there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of commentary there. A lot of
Yeah.
feeling, a heart.
Definitely. Definitely. Before we go, is there like anything else that you want to say? Maybe any advice about chronic illness or autism, or just anything just to finish?
My biggest advice is to just keep advocating for yourself, and to keep pushing to follow your dreams. I own my own clothing label, and I never thought anything like that would be possible. I'm doing things like New York Fashion Week, and I'm going to fly to Paris Fashion Week when just a few years ago I wasn't even allowed to get on a plane. So just to keep fighting for your dreams, and if people tell you you can't, just to prove them wrong, and use that as the motivation. Say, oh, you think I can't do this? Well, I will show you, so that the next person who's in my shoes will be able to see me and I can be their example and I can be their role model. Because people might have thought that somebody with a chronic illness or autism couldn't be in the fashion world. And they can see me and say, oh, Jacqueline City did it, so I can do it too. And people might say, oh, I'm autistic or I have a chronic illness, I can't have a podcast. They may look to you, oh, Mason can do it, then I can do it, I can start one. And I think that's really important.
I love that because I completely agree. Like you wouldn't think that you'd be in the fashion world, and then like you say, I don't think I would have been doing a podcast, but here we go. As time goes on, we do things we don't expect.
Yeah, and we're proving people wrong, and we're opening a lot of doors that everybody assumed would be shut for people like us. And I think that's important. So we're paving the way and we're making it easier for the next person.
Definitely. Well, Jacqueline, it's been lovely speaking to you today. I hope you
Thank
enjoy it
you.
because it's been really cool.
Yes, thank you for having me. And anybody listening or watching, you can reach me at jacquelincity.com, or my Instagram is at Jacqueline City. And feel free to DM me, reach out. I love doing a lot of mentorship work, or if you have any questions about anything I talked about, feel free. I answer all of my messages, and I would love to be friends.
Definitely, and we've made friends today, so it's great to meet another friend, isn't it?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely. And
Okay, say bye.
what is your dog's name?
This is Stitch. He has a twin sister named Lilo who's laying down, but I have Lilo and Stitch.
Awesome. So we've got a podcast today with Jacqueline and Stitch, everyone. So 3 people in total. So we've got an additional member. It's nice to have pets as well
Oh,
in on the podcast.
oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
I love my pet.
it's lovely. I love dogs, so it's my favorite animal. So I'm it's great to it's a good comfort, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they help me so much. I got them when I was really sick. I adopted them. at my sickest when I knew I wouldn't be able to go to college. I was like, "Oh, I can commit to having a dog because I'll be home every day." And, they help me through so much. They cuddle with me on my bad days, and they go out with me, and we go to the park and hike on my good days. So they're
Yeah,
always my best friends.
yeah. You're kind of stuck with them, aren't you?
They're stuck with me, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's right. I think that's right. But to anyone watching or listening today, you can go find Jacqueline at all the details that she just said. But we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. We'll definitely do sign like this again, Jacqueline. But yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. It's been awesome speaking to you. Have a nice rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.